In a dramatic shift in transatlantic relations, Donald Trump's 2025 re-election has triggered significant economic tensions between the United States and European Union. Within months of taking office, Trump declared a national trade emergency, implementing sweeping tariffs on EU imports, 25% on steel, aluminum, and automobiles, and 20% on nearly all other European goods entering American markets. The EU's response has been notably unified, despite varying interests among member states. Germany, as the bloc's economic powerhouse, finds itself particularly vulnerable, especially in its automotive sector. With nearly $30 billion in annual car exports to the U.S., German automakers face potentially devastating impacts from the 25% tariff threat. Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government has advocated for a balanced approach, supporting EU retaliation while simultaneously pushing for diplomatic solutions. German Economy Minister Robert Habeck emphasized the EU's strength through unity, noting that U.S. markets were showing signs of weakness amid the growing trade tensions. France, led by Emmanuel Macron, has taken a more aggressive stance. Macron's bold suggestion that European companies should suspend U.S. investments sent shockwaves through diplomatic channels. France has also championed using regulatory measures against American tech giants, while simultaneously protecting its vital wine exports from threatened 200% tariffs. Italy, the EU's third-largest U.S. exporter, has adopted a more cautious approach. With its economy in a delicate position, Rome has questioned the wisdom of retaliatory measures, fearing escalation could further damage their export-dependent industries. These tariffs, though temporarily paused for 90 days, have already impacted buying patterns, with European consumers increasingly choosing alternatives to American products. The situation remains fluid, but early indicators suggest a significant reshaping of transatlantic trade relationships may be underway, with potential long-term consequences for both American and European economies. Good evening. I'm bringing you an exclusive report on the escalating trade tensions between the European Union and the United States following Trump's tariff policies. EU member states have shown remarkable solidarity despite their varying economic interests. Italy, known for its premium exports like Prosecco wine and Parmigiano cheese, initially expressed concerns about potential U.S. retaliation. However, wine and dairy products were removed from the initial retaliation package, helping secure Italian support for the broader EU response. Even traditionally pro-US nations like Ireland, Poland, and the Baltic states have maintained the united European front. This is notable given Ireland's substantial economic ties to America, with nearly one-third of its exports destined for U.S. markets. Polish officials have emphasized the importance of proportionality and unity. As one EU diplomat noted, "The fear of bilateral deals breaking our unity after Brexit never materialized. Trump's aggressive tactics have strengthened our resolve." The agricultural sector has become a primary battleground. The EU's targeting of U.S. farm exports with 25% duties on American meats and cereals sent shockwaves through U.S. farming communities. An Illinois corn farmer summed it up: "Tariffs are a good way to lose your customers." European buyers are securing alternative suppliers in South America for staples like corn, wheat, and soybeans. Brazil and Argentina are seeing increased orders as European manufacturers hedge against potential disruptions. American whiskey producers felt the heat when the EU threatened a 50% tariff on bourbon, though this was later scaled back. The mere threat caused European importers to suspend orders of American spirits. This demonstrates how Trump's trade policies may be backfiring, pushing traditional U.S. trading partners to develop alternative supply chains that could impact American exporters. Good evening, viewers. European Union import data reveals a dramatic shift in transatlantic commerce following President Trump's return to office. Let me break down these critical changes affecting your everyday life. First, let's talk about food prices. European imports of American food products have plummeted in early 2025, with staples like corn, soy, and beef showing double-digit declines. This shift mirrors similar patterns in regions like the former Soviet Republic. The automotive sector shows significant changes. Trump's 25% tariff on European cars has materialized, targeting German luxury vehicles. The EU's response includes a zero-for-zero deal proposal and prepared counter-tariffs if needed. For American manufacturers, U.S. passenger vehicle exports to Europe are declining. Ford's Mustang exports are dwindling, and Tesla's Models S and X face steep hurdles. The effects extend into industry. European manufacturers are now avoiding US-made parts and machinery, turning to Asian and domestic suppliers. German machinery imports from America have decreased significantly. The aerospace sector shows changes too. European airlines increasingly favor Airbus over Boeing for fleet updates, similar to shifts seen in regions near Russia. The broader impact? U.S. capital goods exports to Europe, which represented about 9% of EU imports last year, show significant decline in 2025. This trend appears set to continue as European businesses adapt. For more detailed analysis and daily updates on this evolving situation, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you reliable news coverage every day. In a significant shift affecting transatlantic trade relations, European airlines and tech companies are actively moving away from U.S. suppliers, marking a notable transformation in long-standing business partnerships. Industry analysts report that major carriers like Ryanair and KLM are reconsidering their Boeing aircraft orders, potentially causing a substantial decline in U.S. aerospace exports for 2024. Transport equipment, including aircraft, previously represented 5.5% of EU imports from the U.S., but this figure is expected to decrease in 2025. Multiple scheduled Boeing jet deliveries to European airlines are now under review, reflecting both wariness of Trump's unpredictable trade policies and strategic support for European manufacturer Airbus. The tech sector is experiencing similar upheaval. Despite initial exemptions for semiconductors and pharmaceuticals from Trump's tariff list, European tech firms are proactively diversifying their supply chains. Companies are increasingly turning to East Asian chipmakers and European or Korean telecom equipment providers, reducing dependency on U.S. suppliers. January 2025 saw an unusual spike in EU-US trade, with imports rising 7.5% to $30.5 billion and exports jumping 16%. However, this surge was primarily due to businesses rushing shipments before new tariffs took effect. By February and March, imports from the U.S. declined sharply. Industry associations project a 10–15% drop in transatlantic goods imports for 2025 if higher tariffs persist. Some sectors face steeper declines, with American farm product imports potentially falling 30% from 2024 levels. Energy trade, previously a cornerstone of U.S.-EU relations, is also shifting. Following the energy crisis stemming from the situation in the politically turbulent region, the EU imported record volumes of U.S. liquefied natural gas and oil. However, 2025 shows signs of stabilization as Europe seeks to diversify its energy sources and reduce U.S. dependence. Petroleum products, which constituted 16.1% of total EU imports from America in 2024, are now seeing decreased volumes as Europe pursues alternative suppliers and energy strategies. In a concerning trend for American businesses, EU imports of U.S. goods are showing significant decline across multiple sectors in early 2025. This downturn, triggered by the reimposition of tariffs following Trump's return to office, is creating ripple effects throughout various industries. Latest data reveals that U.S. energy exports to the EU have dipped below last year's levels, while pharmaceutical exports, which accounted for nearly 22% of total EU imports from America in 2024, have hit a plateau. The impact is particularly severe in the agricultural sector, where American farmers are experiencing a painful déjà vu of previous trade conflicts. "It's like watching a rerun of our worst nightmare," says Tom Henderson, an Iowa farmer. "These tariffs are hitting us twice, raising our costs and killing our export markets." The agricultural community's concerns are well-founded, with European orders for American soybeans, corn, and specialty crops showing sharp declines. The manufacturing sector isn't faring any better. Boeing faces additional headwinds as European airlines reconsider their orders. Heavy equipment manufacturers Caterpillar and John Deere report weakening European demand, while auto parts suppliers face potential contract cancellations. Even smaller American businesses are caught in the crossfire. Companies face the difficult choice between absorbing costly tariffs or abandoning the European market altogether. The numbers tell a stark story. The EU market, worth $366 billion to U.S. exporters in 2024, represents 17% of total U.S. exports. As this market contracts, The Biden administration is considering revival of farm aid programs, similar to those used during previous trade disputes. The U.S. Agriculture Secretary acknowledged in April 2025 that discussions about potential mitigation efforts are underway, suggesting a possible return to taxpayer-funded support for affected farmers. Good evening. I'm bringing you the latest on the escalating trade tensions between the United States and European Union, where American businesses are feeling the impact of Trump's tariff policies. Major U.S. companies are raising concerns about their 2025 prospects. Chemical and pharmaceutical giants that rely on European customers predict revenue drops. Caterpillar's CEO states that European equipment orders depend on stable trade conditions. The numbers speak for themselves. Wall Street is nervous, with export-focused companies taking hits. Market volatility reminds analysts of previous trade conflicts. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce warns these tariffs will hurt American workers and consumers. Economists project that EU retaliatory tariffs could eliminate thousands of American jobs. States like Iowa, Kansas, Michigan, and Ohio are vulnerable. Washington State, home to Boeing, is preparing for impact. Remember Harley-Davidson? In 2018, they moved some production overseas due to EU tariffs. Now they're back in the crosshairs as Brussels considers new tariffs on American goods. The EU's response has been calculated and unified. They're balancing strength with keeping diplomatic channels open. Trade Chief Maros Sefcovic has proposed a zero-for-zero arrangement, offering to eliminate tariffs on both sides for cars and industrial goods. At a recent Luxembourg meeting, EU ministers showed unity. Their message: they regret U.S. actions, they're willing to negotiate, but they're ready to retaliate if necessary. As one EU diplomat noted, while opinions vary on approach, unity remains crucial in these challenging times. We'll keep you updated as this situation develops. In a significant display of unity against U.S. trade measures, the European Union has demonstrated remarkable cohesion in its response to Trump's aggressive tariff policies. Our analysis reveals that 26 out of 27 EU member states approved retaliatory measures, showcasing an unprecedented level of agreement in Brussels. The EU's initial countermeasure package, valued between $21 to $26 billion, targets U.S. goods with a 25% tariff. What's particularly interesting is the strategic selection of products, from dental floss to diamonds, carefully chosen to impact Trump-supporting states while minimizing disruption to European consumers. In a fascinating diplomatic dance, European trade ministers made crucial adjustments to maintain unity. For instance, bourbon whiskey, initially targeted with a 50% tariff, was removed from the list after France and Italy expressed concerns about potential U.S. retaliation against their wine exports. Trump had threatened a staggering 200% counter-tariff on European wines and spirits. The EU's response is structured in multiple stages, with some tariffs beginning April 15th, most by May 16th, and others delayed until December. This measured approach shows Brussels' attempt to maintain pressure while leaving room for diplomatic solutions. But perhaps most intriguingly, Europe isn't just playing defense. The bloc is actively pursuing what analysts call a diversification strategy, reducing dependence on U.S. imports. They're accelerating trade agreements with other regions, including renewed focus on the EU-Mercosur deal with South American nations. European businesses are already adapting, sourcing energy from alternative suppliers like Qatar and increasing renewable energy investments. Manufacturing firms are turning to Australian and South American grain suppliers and Asian machinery manufacturers. The EU has also developed a new weapon in its arsenal, the Anti-Coercion Instrument, ACI, designed specifically to counter economic bullying. Sources in Brussels suggest this tool could be deployed if tensions escalate further, marking a new chapter in transatlantic trade relations. Good evening. I'm your host, bringing you critical updates on the evolving trade relationship between the European Union and America. Tonight's focus: how Europe is fighting back against Trump's aggressive trade policies. The EU has unveiled a powerful new weapon in its arsenal, targeting U.S. services and tech sectors. European officials could potentially block major American companies from government contracts or slow down approvals for U.S. tech giants. This isn't just about steel and soybeans anymore. We're talking about billion-dollar defense contracts and tech industry access. While Ireland's ministers express concerns about this nuclear option, its existence gives Brussels significant leverage in negotiations. Trump's aggressive stance has united Europe in unexpected ways. It's like watching a family that only comes together when faced with an external threat. European policymakers aren't just playing defense. They're using this crisis to push forward their strategic independence agenda. They're talking about producing their own semiconductor chips, scaling up aerospace projects, and creating a more unified high-tech market. One investment firm suggests that Trump's policies might be the tough medicine Europe needed. European Commission economists project these tariffs could cost the Eurozone between 0.2% and 0.6% of GDP by 2027, depending on how nasty this trade war gets. For a region already struggling with low growth, every decimal point matters. Europe's game plan is twofold: immediate countermeasures through targeted retaliation, and a longer-term strategy to build internal resilience. It's like watching a chess match where one player is forced to think several moves ahead. What are your thoughts on where this trade relationship is heading? Share your views in the comments below. And if you found this analysis valuable, don't forget to like and subscribe. Another relevant video is waiting for you on screen now. Thanks for